2024, therefore, we intend to consult with all stakeholders in the education sector, standardize textbooks as far as is practical, and eliminate the practice of unnecessary new textbooks arriving on the curriculum every year. This practice is putting too much strain on needy families who cannot easily pass on books from one generation of children to another. However, Madam Speaker, in recognition of the cost of school uniforms, supplies, and textbooks, I propose to provide in 2024 for needy students in primary and secondary school, using a suitable means test, a school supplies and book grant of $1,000 to assist in meeting the cost of attendance at primary and secondary schools.
And again, just a little sample, a flavor coming out of last Monday's budget. We welcome from TTUTA the second Vice President, Marsha Huggins. She joins me on the Zoom line. Good morning to you, Ms. Huggins. Great to see you as per usual.
Good morning, Mr. Williams, to you and your team, and good morning to your viewers. Thanks for having me this morning.
You're most welcome. So I'm looking at the allocation, $8 billion plus, the largest allocation in the budget, so education getting the lion's share, as it will. But still a couple of things are adding up. As far as I'm concerned, I want to really get your perspective. I'm looking at that $1,000 means test that the finance minister speaks so highly about. I mean, honestly, in this current 2023 Trinidad and Tobago going into 2024, what kind of $1,000 really give a family going into a new school term?
I'm not sure how much it can, given the cost of books, the cost of uniforms, and other incidentals like getting to school transport and so on. $1,000 may not be much. It may be helpful, but I'm not sure. And again, it will also depend on what the means test is attempting to capture. If it's attempting to capture really and truly whether or not these students are not able to do so and it's fair, then fine. But that is, of course, up in the air because we have no information on that.
I mean, it could make sense if it works in conjunction with what the minister would have said at the start of the clip, where, yes, he's correct. For many years, they would make probably an adjustment of a paragraph, a little two-line, and then tell you the new edition of a particular textbook, which means new cost. And if indeed they're going to come with the stakeholders to put an end to that scenario, probably it can give assistance in that regard. I mean, what's TTUTA's take on that situation with textbooks and the constant having to get a new one every term, every new school year?
I mean, as a teacher, for me, I have never insisted, this is personally, right? I have never insisted on students getting new books every year. The content is essentially the same unless there's some sort of revolutionary thing that has happened. I think the textbook thing is really a money-making thing. That's my personal view. The editions or the new editions are not fundamentally different unless there has been, for secondary school, there has been a change in the syllabus or on the CXC criteria. That's the only reason why I feel a book should be updated, a textbook should be updated. Other than that, there isn't really a real reason to do so. And of course, schools will have their preferences. Different schools have their different preferences. There is a standardized book list, I believe, that the ministry would recommend for every subject area in secondary school and for the primary schools. And schools will choose from those recommended books. But the every year updates and editions and so on, I think it's unnecessary, especially in a climate where parents have multiple children going to school. Sometimes, in some cases, they may have children right after each other in different levels, and they can't even use the books because they changed the books. So in that regard, I can see it being helpful, but it has to be something that has to be managed carefully.
I want to ask you, as it pertains to infrastructure, work being done, obviously some schools need a total, I would say, overhaul, as it were. Obviously, we look at the scenario with the extreme heat and the conversation now on schools being equipped with air condition and all the other factors that surround schools and the management of an actual facility. Is this $8 billion plus going to suffice? Will it work?
I don't think so. The 8 million that has been allocated is for the entire sector. So that's going to include, it will include infrastructure. But to me, the infrastructure costs in terms of upgrading, rebuilding, because you have situations where schools are earmarked, some schools are earmarked for being replaced, rebuilt. I don't believe that 8 billion will be enough. I know persons are looking at it in terms of that being the lion's share of the budget. But in terms of what we face on a daily basis, complaints from our members, the failing infrastructure. You have some schools that have to be closed for different reasons. Either they have failing electrical, they're failing sewer plants, some parts of the structure falling apart, and you all report on these things often enough. Some of these things don't make the media. So we get reports of these things every day. I get reports in my email and on my desk almost on a daily of schools. They've been trying, some of them. The infrastructure is not necessarily bad at the school, but to get to the school, the road work, the road network is failing. So I am almost certain that $8 billion is not going to be enough, because that $8 billion has to be divided amongst all of the sectors within education. So I don't think that is just for infrastructure alone. So
on the issue of outfitting schools with air conditioning, that we are clearly a long way from making that a reality.
Very long way. Some of our schools are over 50 years older. When we consider the former junior, secondary, and senior comprehensive schools, and then the former, what we used to call government secondary schools, the government secondary schools in most cases are as old as our independents. And our junior secondary and senior comprehensives are 50 plus years old. We have some primary schools that are going into 100 years old, that, as some of them have been well maintained, some have not been. So I don't see how that 8 billion is going to fix all of the issues. And with regard to air condition, that is going to be another set of money, because you're going to have to outfit the school to cater for that, because these schools would have been built in a time where air condition was not considered something important. And even for the newer plants, like some of the junior secondary schools that would have been rebuilt, those were built for AC, but those are also fraught with issues because of lack of maintenance.
Let me ask you.
So the money that has been allocated there, I don't see that.
Let me ask you, because I know it's hard enough for the students to cope with the extreme heat, but how are the teachers coping? What's the conversation with your fellow professionals concerning teaching in these classrooms? It's concrete. I can only imagine how a classroom will feel, let's say, after 12, going into that 1 o'clock hour when it's really at its maximum.
It is difficult. Our teachers have been complaining. Some of them have been dressing for the heat. Now, of course, not ridiculous, but they're dressing to suit that. But there has to be a serious conversation about how we are going to manage with, because climate is changing. It's not going to get any better. We may have some breaks in between there, but we live in a tropical climate, and it's continually getting hotter and hotter. But teachers have been complaining it's been difficult. Fans only blow hot air. Some schools have tried in their own way to minimize that. They have shifted around classroom activity to make activity different in the afternoon to help to cope with the heat. Not all schools have the ability to do so or have done that. So it's been very difficult for the children and for teachers.
Understood. I want to ask you, as it pertains to some of the numbers, I know many were concerned based on the rate of dropouts, especially in the primary school system, secondary school. Yes, the largest allocation is put forward to education. I know there are different incentives and plans in place, but still we are seeing students not making that effort. Where are we in that conversation? Is there a difference coming into this first term of the new school and academic year?
Well, we don't have exact figures with that. It seems to be about the same. We hope that with the initiatives that the Ministry of Education would sit and collaborate with us, as well as what they would put forward, would help to mitigate against that, but we don't have any concrete figures with regard to how that has happened. What we do know is that we would have had basically 2 years of learning loss, and that's something that has to be addressed in a serious way. We hope that the ministry will really sit with us and have that conversation with us more often, so that we can find ways and means to, because we're not meant to be antagonists, we're not meant to be obstructionists. We do encourage anything to do with the positive movement in education. So we do hope that over time, the ministry will, if they come up with initiatives, we have some suggestions of our own, that we can sit and collaborate and see how best we can manage to get our children back on track.
Understood. As it pertains to behavior and discipline, so last week I had Officer Lal from the TTPS on the program. He mentioned that there is now a conflict resolution arm of the TTPS going into the schools, trying to bring that kind of conversation to students and more or less be that middle person to mediate if there's any kind of grievance or issues in the said school or among schools that might have issues. Where is TTUTA in that conversation, and do you welcome that kind of move by the TTPS?
Yes, we do. I mean, the school, raising children is a community effort. The saying, it takes a village to raise a child, it is still applicable. It's not just the responsibility of schools. It's not just the responsibility of parents. It's a societal issue. And we welcome that. We know that the community police used to do those kinds of programs and interventions from time to time. A lot of these at-risk schools have relationships with different police stations or different arms of the police to come in from time to time to speak with children, to do programs with them. So this is a welcome initiative. We have no issue with something like that. Anything that will assist us or assist the profession in terms of managing violence and indiscipline in school, we welcome that. Indeed.
Where is TTUTA right now as it pertains to the teachers you represent in terms of some of the requests, remuneration, some of the issues that will normally sometimes come up in the public domain, and obviously TTUTA will come forward and put their position strong concerning issues surrounding teachers, just the general, payment package, and just the environment and the workspace. Where are you right now with that?
Well, we always champion the cause of ensuring that our teachers work in a safe environment. That is something that's always paramount to us. We know that most public officers are not completely pleased with regard to the last settlement that we have. We just hope that they would keep their word, and they have already kept us waiting for almost 10 years. If it is, they have promised, according to the Minister of Finance, that this money will come. Please bear in mind, and we want the public to bear in mind, that this is not a gift. This is money that is owed to us. So the fact that we are getting it for Christmas doesn't mean that is any gift of any kind. This is something that we were owed for almost 10 years, in some cases more than 10 years. We hope that promise is kept, and that persons, we also have persons who have issues with being at the wrong salary point and so on. We continue to work towards ensuring that persons get paid what they are owed. So we always say, pay us what you owe us. Don't have us waiting. Don't have us just there, languishing. We have a lot of teachers who have been languishing for different reasons, not at the correct salary point, not being appointed as permanent teachers, and they have been working in the system sometimes upwards of 10 years. We are working towards having those situations rectified, or some resolution come to as soon as we can. But we can only do as much as we can. We want the authorities to be able to work towards ensuring that teachers get what their just due is.
Understood. Ms. Huggins, I want to thank you this morning for the time. Feel free to touch base, whenever you're available again, to just keep us abreast and keep us up to speed with all the developments within the system, and of course to give TTUTA's perspective. We thank you as always.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Blessed day to everybody.
All the best. That is TTUTA's second Vice President, Marsha Huggins, touching base. So we come back after the break. We get a chance to have that conversation. I haven't had Dr. Ram Lachan on the program for quite a while. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and Dr. Nicole Ram Lachan, she joins us. She is, as you know, a biotechnologist, and she's going to give us details about genetic testing and breast cancer. Let's have that conversation next.